Hello, good evening, everyone, and I welcome you to this parenting webinar on supporting your child through puberty. My name is Olubukola Adewoyi, and I'm the CEO of Supreme Education Foundation Schools. We are very excited to finally have this program in motion. It's come to play through the popular demand of you, our parents, requesting for this. And a very big thank you to Ms. Orenuga for making this possible, and the Big Little Project. They've worked tirelessly to bring this to pass today. So like I would always say with every webinars and every program, have your pens ready and your notepads, because this is a very interesting evening and full of enlightenment. There's so much we are going to glean from the experts on this program, on our panels this evening. A very big thank you to them for making it possible and for making themselves available to us. I welcome you all to this program. Please sit back and glean and learn as much as possible from this program. Remember that it's not just for your children, it's for all those children all around you, your nieces, your nephews, and family friends all around you, because some people will come to you and you'll be able to tell them, look, I've learned how to handle this. And like I've also said before, puberty stage, managing it well can mar or make your child. So please listen, and thank you for joining us this evening. Over to you, Ms. Orenuga, and thank you for making out time for us.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Adewoyi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bukola Renuga, and I am the co-founder of the Big Little Project. Thank you for joining us today. I would just like to introduce the Big Little Project. The Big Little Project is a mentoring program and a circle of love and learning, where people of different age groups learn from each other, grow and excel as they navigate different stages of their lives. We decided to host this webinar because last week, we had a session on puberty, and we realized that it's also important to speak to parents about supporting their children through puberty. I would also like to introduce our speakers today. First and foremost, we have Mrs. Yosola Omotade. Mrs. Omotade is a counselor and has worked with children and teens for almost 10 years. She has a master's in advertising and marketing from the University of Leeds and a diploma in counseling from the Institute of Counseling, Glasgow, Scotland, United Kingdom. She is currently pursuing a master's in educational psychology and is the founder of Talk to Yossi, and they provide general counseling services, especially for children, teens, and young adults. Thank you, Mrs. Omotade, for joining us today.
Thank you.
We also have here Dr. Uwem Esiet. Dr. Esiet is the co-founder and director of Action Health Incorporated, a leading NGO working to advance adolescents and youth health and development. He is a public health physician with over 30 years of working on adolescent and youth development. Thank you very much, Dr. Esiet, for joining us today. Last but definitely not least, we have Mrs. Oyefunsho Orenuga. Mrs. Orenuga is a registered nurse and midwife with a Bachelor of Nursing Education, specializing in maternal and child health. She also possesses a master's degree in public health, all from the prestigious University College Hospital, Ibadan, and Nigeria Premier University of Ibadan, Oyo State. She is currently the provost of Lagos State College of Nursing, Ibadan, Lagos State. Thank you, Mrs. Orenuga, for joining us today. Before we delve into this session, I would like to first and foremost get the perspective of a young person when it comes to experiencing puberty. We can all talk about it. We've all gone through puberty, but it's also important to hear from a young person what her experience. I mean, someone that has just recently gone through this phase can speak about it. And we have here joining us today, Muna. Muna is a member of the Big Sister Little Sister project. Thank you for joining us, Mona. First and foremost, I would like to ask you, at what age did you start experiencing puberty?
I was 12 years old when I started experiencing puberty.
You were 12 years old when you started experiencing puberty. What were your experiences with regards to physical changes, emotional changes, and psychosocial changes also? Could you just tell us a bit about your experiences in those areas?
Physically, I believe that the female puberty experience could be summed up to breast development and the menstrual cycle. For me, breast development was a bit uncomfortable because I had to adapt to a situation I wasn't used to. I started wearing bras and they were very, very uncomfortable at that time. And I became self conscious of the people that I associated with. Then, now, the menstrual cycle, when I first saw my menstrual cycle, it wasn't something that I expected at that particular point. So, although I have already been briefed about menstruation from my family, my mother, my sister, and school, I cried because I thought I had hurt myself and I was very worried. So after the whole cleanup process and menstrual cycle lecture again, I was good to go. I was very lucky to have people that understood what I was going through and they supported me throughout the whole process. My psychosocial experience, most times I got on the nerve of my peers and my family because mood swings became a normal thing for me because 1 minute I was happy and the next I was sad. So I began to act out, much to my dismay. I was very rude sometimes, and my mother was very supportive because she never failed to discipline me when I crossed the line.
Um, so how did you
Um,
feel? Just generally, tell us how you felt when all this was going on, having to also deal with school, deal with, your friends. How was it? Were you one of the first people to experience this amongst your group of friends?
no, I was actually the last, and I was happy because based on their experience, it wasn't a good thing for them. So I was happy that I hadn't even started first. But I was confused when I started. I was very confused because my emotions changed. The things that I found interesting no longer was of interest to me. I saw situations differently. I reacted to situations differently, and I guess I was afraid because my mother told me that at that time that menstruation was something that happened monthly. So thinking of the cramps, back pains, and everything, it was just unpleasant at that time.
Yes. So how were you then able to deal with it? Like, what sort of support did you receive, even from your friends and from other people? What sort of support did you receive?
Before I started puberty, the menstrual cycle and everything, I already saw what my sister and my mother went through. So I already had an idea of what they went through. And I said my friends started before me. Although their experience, what they told me wasn't really good. So I was wishing I don't start early. But then I got support from my mother and my sister. And my mother was always there. She made me understand that it was totally normal, that every woman went through it. She made me see that it's with time it's going to settle down. So
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So basically, you're telling me that you were able to get the support of your mother. Do you think that as young people, it do you think that it's right to listen to like your classmates? Because sometimes we realize that the first people most young people want to talk to are their friends. What do you think about this?
um I have always been very close with my mother. I consider her my best friend. So before I go and tell my friends anything, I tell her first. So it has never been telling my friends first from my mother. Because she always made it a thing of importance to be very close to me, where I can tell her anything. Even when I had my first crush, it was my mother I told, and not my friends. So that's how.
Wow. So you're lucky then. Thank you very much, Mona. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. We'll just delve into the session, and we'd like to invite Dr. Esiet to please start the discussion on puberty. Dr. Esiet, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so very much. And thank you, Mona, for sharing your thoughts and how you went through it. Let me start by appreciating the school for putting this up and the group that says we should share love and learning. I think the most significant things is that whether we talk about puberty or not, every young person will go through it. And knowing the kind of students who are in Supreme Education Foundation schools, they are children of, may I say, upper middle class and above. And therefore, they are likely going to have a different kind of environment in which they are already growing up. And they will have, amongst others, parents that are highly enlightened and exposed. And I want to believe that such parents will have the capacity to engage with their children. So it is not about the anatomy or the physiology of puberty that I think parents are worried about. I think the fears that parents have are likely going to be the fears of the context in which the young people are growing up today. And I can tell you that because of the rapid communication and the abilities of young people to be exposed to several other influences far outside and beyond the scope of their parents and even the teachers, that is what parents are likely scared of. So I will want to focus a little bit more on that kind of context and maybe highlight a few of the fears I believe parents are maybe having, and then speak to how parents can probably help the young people to transit all of this. We cannot take the young people out of the context of their development, which is the Nigerian context, specifically the Lagos context. And the Lagos context is a context of over 20 million people. And I think from the last statistics from the Lagos State Bureau of Statistics, young people make up over 55% of the state's population. And because of the cosmopolitan and dynamic nature of Lagos, Lagos contributes a lot. In fact, almost 80 to 90% of the creative industry works in Nigeria, especially around music, around the film industry of Nigeria that is popularly referred to as Nollywood, and the general media space, whether it is social media and the traditional media. And if you look at the number of radio, TV stations in Nigeria, proportionately over 60% of them are based in Lagos. And then we look at internet penetration in Lagos and what all of this mean. So our young people, children, are growing up in a state where they are bombarded with a lot of information. Now, our young people have a lot of aspirations of their own, including their fantasies. And how do we find all of this playing out? We are all aware as parents that one of the emerging trends or movements, especially for boys, is this Malian movement. And this Malian movement has been popularized by a Nigerian hip hop artist who has brought a lot of street music and has tried to bridge the socio-economic divide. And the Malians have therefore set a set of rules that are not necessarily in conformity with the norms that we have hitherto known, including things like the boys wear their trousers or boxers or whatever or shorts. They don't use belts. You know, a little bit of off what I call offbeat behavior here and there. They are a little bit more tolerant of the use of drugs that we are otherwise will have frowned at, and they are liberal around the issues of sex and sexuality. So here we are, young people transiting anatomically and physiologically. And this, I don't want to call harsh environment, but what I want to refer to as challenging environment. And then we as parents, oftentimes, we are not taking cognizance of this growth and the implications. And if we are also running at the extreme. Hey, this young lady may become pregnant. This young man can go into drugs without necessarily sharing with them, listening as we ought to, and then getting to understand their own perspectives. Every anatomical part in their body did not just get there because they have now come into puberty. It has always been there from birth. But little growths were taking place, but we didn't notice those growths. But what the hormonal influences does is that, wow, for the boys, their muscles get more developed, their voices improve. It brings along with it also a personality development that they tend to become more confident, and the ability to find expression around their sexuality gets stronger, and they want to let their friends know that they also belong. So you see, and then the parents are still looking at like you are still 8 years old. Do this and don't do that. Forgetting that at this time, if he's a boy, the father especially has a big challenge of bringing himself down to the boy's level, listen, be a friend. You know, you can't say you are listening to your son, for instance, and your body language is saying, listen, say very quickly in the next 1 minute what you want to say because I'm busy, I'm not available. Your boy is not going to take it. But if you say, come, my guy, let's talk, what's up? The guy is like, Dad, this is what is on my mind right now. It may not be exactly what you want to celebrate, but we as fathers, we need to be just calm. Let me say something. Every young person likes achievement, and every young person is wired to achieve. And therefore, if what the young person is thinking at that point in time does not correspond to your aspiration as a father for your son or your daughter, depending, you don't need to scream. All you need to do is to say, okay, why do you want to do it? And don't ask closed-ended questions that must be yes or no. Open-ended questions are very illuminating. And you will get to hear things like the reasons. And when you are hearing the reasons, please don't add to the reasons. If you are not sure of what the young person is saying, ask for clarification. And I can give you an example. Take, for instance, what kind of music do you like? And the person mentions the popular artist. Let me start with maybe Tiwa Savage and then go to every other person. And you feel that, well, at this stage in your life, you are more religious. So you will have wanted to hear Sinach and all the other great musicians. Don't start by condemning what that young person likes. Why you need to know is, why do you like that music? Can be that because it's more danceable. It can be it's because it's what all my friends are listening to. It can be for whatever reason. And then you can then say, okay, I agree with you. That musician or that music is very nice. But what do you think about the kind of music you like, whoever is your musician that you want to promote? So let's say Sinach. And say, what about Sinach? So, oh, I listen to that music, or Nathaniel Bassi or whoever. And then you can discuss that and say, okay, do you realize that this kind of music may be better for you at this time? But if you don't respect the views of that young person, the young person is also not likely going to be amenable to your suggestion as a parent. I use music as a very simple um, issue that I believe we can all start up with. And you can go into bigger issues. I had a situation with the son of a friend of mine who felt, for instance, that alcohol and marijuana were the same. And told me, I mean, you can take alcohol for relaxation and you can also take marijuana for relaxation. And you will think I will get upset. I just said, well, because the internet is something we all believe in. I said, okay, and I opened onto a website and I said, read a little bit about marijuana. And the young man read it and said, interesting. I never knew. And I opened to alcohol, and he also looked at it and said, wow, there is a big difference. And I said, in any case, let's now discuss alcohol, let's discuss marijuana. These are not meant for leisure, because he saw them both from a point of leisure, and because this is the kind of media that this young man has been used to. The stars, whether they are smoking marijuana or not, you don't know, but you see some white flames oozing out. And then the way they hold bottles of whiskey and brandy and this and that, and it is, well, for you to be hip, all of this need to be there. And it shows that you belong. And that is how we started engaging. And I'm happy to say that after a series of such engagements, the father reported to me a few weeks ago that situation has improved at home. And this is the way to go. And the father is a very successful person, but he couldn't handle it. And he had spoken to me, and I had tried to say, look, let me have a time out with your son, and then we can take it from there. So we need to create time, and we need to be non-judgmental, but we need to be willing to put our thoughts on the table. It's not every time we must have our way. We need to learn to shift. When you go into any negotiation with your child, if it can be about going out, hanging out with friends, you cannot say, if you must go out, you must be back at 4. And you cannot go until you have finished your schoolwork. And the child finishes at 2, and he or she is going to see the friend at Ikoyi. There's going to be travel time. I say you must be back at 4. What you have done in effect is to say, don't go out. And you are going to be breeding a rebellious child, and we can go on and on, but if you say, okay, if you finish your assignments on Friday, by Friday night, then you can go spend time with your friends on Saturday. You leave in the morning, okay, the driver can drop you off. I call an Uber or Taxify, they drop you off. And when it's about 4, I'll send you a vehicle, the Taxify or Uber, to bring you back. And what are the kind of things you guys like to do? You want to visit this shop, you want to do that, okay, for your lunch at so place, just give some resources. engage. Let the child feel that, okay, you respect me to have my space and you are my friend. Another child can be like a mother who will be able to share with you, I am menstruating. Oh, some guy is talking to me, or this girl is trying to get me to do this. But if we don't have all those kinds of relationships, I'm sure we all know what the consequence will be. Let me stop now, and so that maybe we can have more time at the discussion. So you can see the take home at this take away messages from me. Every child will pass through puberty, whether we support the child or not. One. Two, the changes in puberty will not change because those changes have always been. We also went through it, and our children's children will go through it. Three, we need to be available to support our children through this process. And four, we need to be able to bring ourselves to their level to engage and be non judgmental and be willing to provide factual answers. And when we don't have answers, let's be honest enough and guide them to where they can get the answers. Thank you for giving me this time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Esiat. So basically, everything can be summed up into communication. It's important for parents to communicate with their children because opening that line of communication is what would make a young boy or a young girl tell you when they're having or going through puberty. They're the first person to talk to that they talk to when they start experiencing these changes. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Esiat. Um,
Well,
we also have Mrs. Orenuga. She would be speaking on puberty from the girl's angle. I would like to encourage our viewers to please engage us. You can leave your comments, leave your questions. We're seeing everything and we welcome you. And we're happy that we've started receiving some comments and some questions. And thank you. Just please keep engaging us. We're looking at everything. Mrs. Orenuga, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Miss Orenuga. And thank you, Seth, for this opportunity to talk to parents. And I must say that it is very important that we engage our parents when it comes to our children, especially the girl child. I'm going to talk about the girl child, not necessarily because they are important more than the male children. But when we talk about the girl children, they go through much more stress than the boys. Dr. Esset has said so many things about the environment in which our children grow up now, which wasn't there when we were growing up. It is. He said that every child must go through puberty. Yes, every child must go through puberty. But the age at which puberty occurs now, it's so it has become so reduced that the maturity that we had, I was an exception during my time because I started menstruation at the age of 9. And my mother had to take me to see the doctor. This was 1960s. She thought something was wrong with me. But then my mates were having the menstruation. Even my elder sister had started before her. She started at the age of 14. I had started at the age of 9. But after that one incident, I didn't have menstruation again for the next 1 year. And my mom was afraid again. Is she pregnant? But what I'm saying is that these days, even children as young as 8, if we don't be careful, we start menstruating. They will go into puberty. Why? The nutrition we are giving these children now. All sorts of things, that the environment, what they see, what they perceive. Even as little as 9 years, then I didn't know it was menstruation. But if you ask an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old now, what is menstruation? She can give you a big of a lecture because they go through social media, they hear all sorts of things, there's pressure, peer group influence. But the most important thing is whether they hear from here or there, they still have to go through the stress. I don't want to label it as stress of puberty because you see a young girl starting to develop breast. And it's so painful. She's rubbing her body in the morning and she touches that hard thing there. And it's like, I remember a mother telling me that her daughter had boil on her chest. When I examined it, I told her, I said, she's developing breast. She herself did not know because the child was so young. You see some of them at the age of 7, 8, they're already having pubic hair, which can be embarrassing to the mother and they themselves. And then especially when they're in the boarding house, they see their mates, they are not physically developed the way they are developed because puberty is individualized. Your own cannot be my own. So mothers, especially mothers, you need to be friends to your children, your girls. They need to have confidence in you. They need to tell them, my first menstruation, I didn't know what menstruation was. It was my brother that I called, my junior brother. I've wounded myself. Blood is coming out. They will know it is menstruation, but how do they handle menstruation? How would they use the pad? What do they use? How do they use tampon? Would they be able to sleep with that tampon? Which is wrong, they shouldn't. How do they use the pad? How often do they change the pad? You need to talk to them about that. You need to talk to them about hygiene during menstruation so that they won't get stained, so that they won't leave the pad on for so long that it can cause infection and it can start smelling. I know of a neighbor that told me that recently a 15-year-old became so upset, wanted to commit suicide. Because in the boarding house, the boys told her, oh, you have terrible body odor. She didn't know how to go about it. So these are things we have to tell them. Another thing we have to tell our girls is that it is at this age that you can easily get pregnant. Your body is well built for fertility. For every menstruation, you release eggs. And if you have sexual intercourse, don't say if you meet a man. I can meet a man and not have sex with the man or with the boy. Say it the way it is. If you have sexual intercourse, you are likely to get pregnant. That will be an unintended pregnancy. Another thing, there are so more myths surrounding sexuality among our young ones. They hear all sorts of things. Some of them will tell you that, oh, if by the age of 18 you're not disvirgined, you can never get pregnant again. So they push them into wanting somebody to disvirgin them. Some will say, don't worry yourself. Once you stand up having sex, you can never get pregnant. These are myths. Once you take 7-Up, immediately after sex, you will not get pregnant. We have to talk to them about pregnancy. We have to talk to them about sexual activities. We need to talk to them about very many things. Another thing at this period is nutrition. Nutrition is key. When a girl starts having menstruation, she loses blood, she loses iron. She needs to eat, not this indomie kind of thing that they all eat. They need to take good, nutritious diet to replenish the blood that they are missing, that they are shedding. Another important thing at this period, we must recognize mood swings among our girls when they go into puberty. A very small comment to them can upset them. And then they go into isolation. They go and lock themselves up. They want to do anything. You need to be very cautious the way you talk to them. And I like what Dr. Esed said. Your teenage child, at puberty, has a lot of zeal, has a lot of energy, wants to go out. And you are saying, no, you can't go out. I used to tell my daughter then that, oh, the way you see the world as a wicked world, this is their own time. They are not seeing it that way. Oh, there are so many armed robbers. They are born into the time of armed robbers, not when we. I remember when a child, we were talking, and the young person said, why are you complaining about electricity? At least they give us 5 hours a day. I said, really? During my time, Electricity Corporation of Nigeria will not take life. That is what they are used to. You are telling them, oh, you need to be safe. Armed robbers are there, accidents are there. That is the time we had then. That is their own period. So they're not seeing anything from your own eyes. They are seeing it from their own eye view. And they are telling me that I can't go from here to Ikoyi at 7 p.m. Excuse me, mom. What's the big deal? I'm going to hang out with my friends. I'm not saying don't hang out. Number one, parents, you need to know who the friends of your children are, especially girls. I would encourage them to bring them even to the house so that I meet with them. I find out who their parents are. And then one thing I tell, because Bukola forgot to say that I was in the NGO world for 23 years, talking to girl children all over the country. And I know what they tell me about sexuality. And what I tell them is, you see a 16-year-old, maybe we saw WhatsApp message of a 14-year-old recently that got to befriend someone on Facebook. Eventually, they met physically. And this man and his friends took her to the hotel. They were there for 3 days. He started having sex with her. She didn't mind. Nobody looked for her at home. It was when the boy now spent all his money that Nan said, start going home. She didn't want to go home. So they handed her over to another friend. What I'm trying to draw at is sex as sex, whether we like it or not, is sweet. It is palatable. People enjoy it. Young girls enjoy it. It is at this time that their body is so, the hormones is working so much that even if you touch their nipple, oh, they are in cloud nine. How do you stop it? Especially one that has started it. What I tell them is, if you can't stop having sex, please use the condom. Play safe so that you won't get pregnant. We need to study that. We need to be friends to our children, especially girl children. We need to be able to allow them to have confidence in us so that they can tell us anything. Because the whole world is upside down. The whole world is wicked. They meet friends at Facebook. They meet friends even in the shopping mall. You can't stop your child from going to shopping mall. You can't follow your child everywhere. But when you empower your girl child, she's able to say no when she wants to say no. And if she wants to say yes, she can say yes. But the bottom line is you have to be to allow your girls to have confidence in you. Don't be that kind of mother. And mommy, I have something. Today, what else? What do you want to say to me again? Is it money you want? And take the money and go. You have not listened to this girl. You don't know what is bothering her. You have not, you even pray with them. In your prayer, sometimes you send messages when you're praying with them. You're sending messages. My daughter is laughing. You are sending messages. Father, Lord, help me with these children. And you want to, step by step, they are listening. But again, don't overdo your prayer. With all due respect, I find that religion has compounded our children. There's a short thing on television these days that they were interviewing people and they interviewed Minister Fashola. And he said, in our daily lives, we have too much God. When you compound them with only God, 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 go to the church, go to night vigil, they will look at you and say, okay, I'm going for night vigil. And they will go to any other place they are going to. So we need to make them have confidence in us. We need to appreciate at that time that they have mood swings. We need to appreciate at that time that the hormones in them, that is the time that they want to drive a car. You have to tell them that, look, the law in this country says you can't drive a car until you are 18. But I promise you, immediately you are 18, you will go to driving school. They'll be looking forward to that being 18 years. If you say you can't take my car, is it my car? One day you will not be there, they will take that car. There's nothing, you can't stop it.
Very true.
One thing I want us to realize is that at this period, the hormones is working in them so much that they can be rebellious. They can be rebellious. Mommy, you said I won't go out. I am going to go out. What will you do? Go on your knees and pray. And call and say, my dear, I'm not saying don't go out. But where are you going? When are you going? When are you coming back? Let us arrange it so that you will know where she is. She won't tell you she's going to Ikoyi. Meanwhile, she's gone to Ibadan to meet boyfriend. If it's your boyfriend you're going out with, please let me know. No problem. I will accept it that you should go. So they're very rebellious at this period, at this time, and we must show compassion. We all have gone through it. Sometimes I think, we have our own parents relating with us so much like this? No, no. But we went through it because the world wasn't as terrible as I didn't see television when I was growing up in Jos. There was no television until I came to Lagos in 1968. And I sat down in front of television when they said that is television. These days, 24 hours, different stations, they can tune in, they can do this, they can do that. So the bottom line is, when your child is going through puberty, you must reassure the child that it is a normal thing. You won't be the first and you won't be the last. And individual differences. That is why they have their figure eights. When they start having their figure eight, boys, look at them. You can't stop boys from looking at them. But you can tutor them that this is what is happening, this is what will happen, this is what may happen, and this is how you can react. Don't run away from them. Empower them. Empower your children so that they will know how to react to all these. Even the older men, we look at them, they will know that they are just 15 or 16. So you reassurance, compassion, show compassion. Mommy, I don't want to eat today. Is Indomie I want to eat? Okay, you can eat it, but the following day you want to eat it. I will sit down with you and tell you the pros and cons of eating good food, good nutrition. So we need to show compassion and we need to show understanding of that period, during that period. And for girls, I said it can start as early as 9 years. I mean, some people, it takes the period by which they go through it and they are fully grown into adulthood is 18 months. Some people 5 years. So it depends on individuals. So we must watch our own children and see. And then we need to accept their need for privacy. Some of them, we just want to lock themselves in the room, doing what they want to do, and come out when that is the time they want their own separate room. So that they can do whatever they want to do. You need to respect all of those. And particularly, you need to talk to your girls about unintended pregnancy. It is rampant around this time. So I want to rest my case there and wait for further interaction on puberty on girls. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mrs. Orenuga. Um, that's I think that parents need to understand where their children are coming from, and that's why we also have Mrs. Omotade, who is a counselor. Mrs. Omotade would be speaking about the emotional support for children during this period.
She needs to be unmuted.
Mrs. Omotade, you need to unmute your microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll be talking about the emotional support we need to give our children when they are approaching puberty. First of all, the emotional changes that take place. You notice, I'm sure some parents already have children who are approaching puberty. So you start noticing their moods begin to change. They become really moody. And because their brain is still learning how to control and express emotions, they might find it difficult. Okay, and they will begin to become more sensitive to, to emotions. So there's some things you probably would say as a parent, which maybe before or earlier on they wouldn't react. You just find them having outbursts of emotion. So that, that would take place. Okay, they begin to get offended by things that maybe they wouldn't get offended by in the past. And then they begin to become more self-conscious. Okay, at this stage, their self-esteem is usually affected by their parents. So they begin to take extra pay extra attention to their parents. I'm sure some of you already have been as getting ready and you're wondering, come on, what's going on in the bathroom? Okay, so because they're beginning to be more focused on their appearance, they begin to take extra care in that area. Okay, and then they begin to want to spend less time with family and more time with friends. That's why you see a lot of them wanting to lock themselves up in the room. And I also agree with Mrs. Oreniga, who said we should respect, as parents, we should respect their privacy. Yes, you should respect their privacy. As their parents, you should knock. At this stage, you should knock before you go in and wait for an answer. I know that might be a bit difficult. As parents, you might feel, oh, it's my house anyway. You just knock and then you go in. But at this stage, it's important to you're also teaching them to be polite and also respect your own privacy. So you knock and then you wait for an answer and then you go in. So at this stage, there will be a lot of friction. There'll be a lot of conflicts because they begin to want to have they already have a mind. They feel they have a mind of their own and they want to always prove a point. So it might seem as if, oh, this child is being so difficult and this child just wants to be a loggerhead with me. They're not doing it intentionally to upset you, but they're beginning to understand that they're becoming more independent and they would want to prove a point in every decision. In fact, most times teenagers at this stage tend to say the opposite of of what their parents say just because they want to prove a point. Okay, and ways you can support your child emotionally during this period is, first of all, as parents, you should understand that you should put yourself in their shoes. You've been through it in the past. You should relate to them the way you would have wanted to be related with when you were going through puberty. So put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself, if you're a dad, put yourself in your son's shoes. If you're the mom, put yourself in your daughter's shoes. How would you have wanted to have been related with when you were approaching puberty? Then Mrs. Orenuga also touched getting to know your child's friends. That's really important. You should know the social relationships your child has, encouraged them to bring their friends home. And then sometimes when they're even talking, I'm not saying you should always butt in, but sometimes when they're having discussions, when they're gisting, you can chip in a few lessons. That's why it's important as parents to understand the trends of what's going on. So when when they're having conversations, you can just say, oh yeah, oh, I heard about this. That would encourage your child to be able to open up. And even your child's friends would be like, oh, your mom is cool. Oh, I think I can talk to your mom or your dad. Okay, so try as parents to understand, one or two trends. So that can form the basis of your discussions as well. Then listen to your child's feelings. Encourage your child to be able to talk to you. If you are always in a hurry, when your child wants to tell you something, trust me, your child won't be encouraged to talk to you about anything. So if you're in the middle of anything and maybe your child knocks and comes and says, oh, sorry, I think you're busy, tell them, no, come, have a seat. For all you know, it might just be a 5-minute conversation, okay? And you would have a lot said within that period. The fact that you've given them enough attention and let that child know that, oh, it's okay to talk. The child will come and talk to you about things. But if as a parent, you're always cutting them, what is it? What do you want to tell me? Oh, I'm busy. I can't talk. your child will go and look for this information outside.
Okay.
Friends will tell your child. I remember when I was in secondary school, there was this gist that, oh, when you start your period and you're having period pains, once you have sex, the pains will go. So those are the things your child will be hearing from for girls from her friends, and then for boys from his friends. Okay, so instead of them going to get that information firsthand from their friends, it's good for them to get it from you, and then be open about your feelings as well. Tell them you've been through this. This was how it was for you. This is how, it's always good to let them know, because I think sometimes teenagers feel, oh, parents just drop from heaven. So a lot of teenagers don't believe that their parents actually went through teenage years. So as parents, it's important to let them know that, oh, this was what happened when I was approaching puberty, and this was how I dealt with it. Okay, then look for teachable moments. Talk about sex. Don't make it too awkward, because talking about sex with your teenager or your child who is approaching puberty can be very awkward. I know, especially if you've not been communicating in the past. And then, like I said earlier, stay involved, stay connected to your teen, observe the various trends, what teenagers are talking about, have discussions, have gists. Let them know that, oh, okay, mommy, you're in vogue, or daddy, you know what's up. So let them understand that you know what is going on. That way you can have teachable moments with them to tell them positive things to do, and things they shouldn't do. Let them know what is good and what is bad. Okay, and then another way you can support your child who is going through puberty. For a girl, be ready for period pains. And I know some parents might feel if their daughters are skipping chores, the child is being lazy. Don't go and say, oh, when I was your age, even when I was having period pains, I would scrub, I would mop, I would do that.
Exactly.
No, lie in. She might just need to lie in for just 30 minutes. Get her a hot water bottle, let her just lie in. Tell her, okay, no problem. When you feel better, you continue your chores. Okay, nothing would happen anyway. And then pay attention to body image issues. There's a stereotype of how girls should look, and those are one of the problems teenagers face, especially the girls. They feel, oh, I need to be very skinny, and then that's why we have a lot of female teenagers who begin to have eating disorders, because they feel, oh, this is how I need to look to be accepted. So you need to watch out and pay attention to body image issues. Reassure your teen that, oh, you look good. Tell your children, especially your girls, tell them they're beautiful. Okay, so when they hear it outside, they won't see it as, oh, that's so much of a big deal. No, tell your child, oh, you look really nice, you look really handsome, you look beautiful. So yeah, you need to pay attention to body image issues, and then encourage them to ask questions. Any fears they have, let them know that you're willing to talk to them. Okay, don't force it out of them. Don't call them, like, have a maybe at the dinner table and you're like, okay, who is your own boyfriend? No, they will even
It's
be
not
the
a
one.
board meeting.
When you create a right atmosphere, they would be encouraged to actually talk to you. It's not going to happen immediately. Okay, it might take weeks, it might take months. Okay, so don't try and force things out. Don't force them to talk to you, and then let it be at their pace, not yours. Don't get discouraged if you feel your child is not opening up. No, if you feel your child is not opening up, try another strategy. Don't get discouraged. And if your child hasn't had, maybe if you notice there's delay in development, it's okay to, reassure that child. Don't fuss over it. It's okay for you to go and see the doctor, and then let your children know that whatever changes is taking place in their bodies is normal. Okay, so for instance, I've heard of some parents who feel, oh, when their children have wet dreams, they they probably had an erotic dream. It doesn't necessarily mean they had a dream about sex. It's just something that would happen. It's natural. So you need to reassure your teen about those changes. Okay, and
All right.
another, okay, sorry, one more thing about the
Okay.
size of their, you know, for instance, boys are concerned about the size of their penis. So, and they talk about it either in the
Mm.
bath, they talk about it in the bathroom or in the locker room, changing room. So it's okay for you to tell your child who is approaching puberty or your teenager that, see, your size doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't make you any less of a man, because it's one of the things that bothers the male teenagers. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matade. Just going to your last point, right? Because I was going to talk about that. So what can parents do? Because I know that at this point there will be a lot of comparison. Like you just said about a male child comparing the size of their penises. For girls also, because they are in the dormitory, even if they're not in the hostel, they have like sports day, they have to change together. And a child is worried, a child that is, for instance, not at that point, and other people are. What do they then do? How can parents talk to them when they are bored? Because I will tell you that that can also create a mood for a child that is not experiencing that. What can parents do about it?
Okay, you need to let your child know that, see, everybody is different. You can even show your child, okay, see your auntie, okay, maybe your breasts are bigger, your auntie's breasts are not as big. So people are different, people have different sizes. Okay. So if you it's all about reassurance. If you let that child know that, see, this is how you are meant to be, this is your own development, okay, this is how you're supposed to develop, and that child understands, it would help the child a lot. Okay, and then don't joke about things when your child is growing breast. Don't say things like, now wow, hey, when did I have you and you're already growing breast? See your, but all those things can put them
Make them
into
self-conscious.
yes, and then they're self-conscious, or and then if you're as a mother or a mother, if you're worried that, oh, your child's breast, maybe, okay, her friend's breasts are probably bigger, and you're already showing concern, it would affect the child's emotions as well. So let your child understand that, see, people grow differently, people develop in different stages. Okay, and then talk about people around who are, different sizes and all.
Thank you, Mr. Matade. I think that someone has just told us, Professor Balogun, thank you for letting us know. We shouldn't only be talking about parents, we should also talk about grandparents also. Because, I mean, some grandparents also play this role for their children. I have a question here about bad moods. Mr. Matade, and I'd like to ask you this question because you're a counselor. How can parents help their children when they experience bad moods?
Okay.
Or mood swings, basically.
Well, in puberty, mood swings, they will always have high moments and low moments. There will be times when they will get angry at little things that you would be like, what happened? And then you see them overly excited about things, and you're like, what's going on? Okay, so first, you need to be able to communicate well. Once the line of communication is open between a parent and a child, when you notice your child is in a mood, let that child be for a while. Okay, not like for the whole day or anything. Let that child go in, and then you can go in and then knock and just say, what's going on? I noticed this and that. Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine. Of course, that's what they usually say. They'll say they are fine. Okay, I'm fine. You can probe a bit more and just, ask questions. Eventually, the the child will talk. Okay, don't say things like, oh, I've been asking you what's wrong with you. That child, forget it. That child won't say anything. Okay, so let the child know that, okay, see, I can see you're in a bad mood. Whenever you're ready to talk about it, I'm available. Okay, let that child, understand that you're available to eventually they would come out of that mood. But if you go in and then you're nagging the child for being in a bad mood, for goodness sake, you're going to make it worse.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Omatade. We also have a question here for Dr. Esiet. Sir, we have a question for you. So parents want to know about independence during puberty. Um, Parents, we've already spoken about, or you spoke about parents giving room for their children to explore. But then again, parents want to know, and grandparents also want to know, where do they draw the line? Your microphone is muted, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm sorry
Yes, sir.
for the break. The issue of independence, we must remember the Convention on the Rights of the Child. It says that we as adults should engage with young people according to their evolving capacities. Take, for instance, a 15-year-old boy or girl that has done SS3. That 15-year-old is ready to go to university. So if that 15-year-old gets to university, that 15-year-old is going to move into unlimited freedom, no controls, especially if he or she is living on campus. That's the reality. So if you have that 15-year-old at home with you, and your 15-year-old says that I need to go for a party, big deal, eh? But your response is not no. Your response is, really? So who's having a party? When are you going? Where is this party going to be? Who are the people? Try and understand that dynamics. I will tell you something happened last year, which was very unfortunate. I think it was at the Muri Okwala Park. We all know it. It's at VI. And there was a day show, and many young people were there, but the organizers of the show did not provide adequate security. Miscreants overtook that venue, and a lot of things happened. And many young people started calling for help using social media and all of that. And I know that one of such young persons got home to the parents, and went with a few other friends. And it was one of the parents who was having this conversation with me and said, oh, can you imagine what happened? And all of that. So if we listen, we can be supportive, because say, okay, you want to go to an open air event, what are the security arrangements? Who are the organizers? You know, and then we can double check that information. And if we don't feel it is safe enough, rather than just an outright no, work it out and give an alternative. Let them have an alternative venue. I will tell you, this is me sharing with you. At a co-hotel, there was a big, throughout the Christmas period, there were concerts virtually every day. And one of the popular artists was having his show. And I'm talking of my own son, who is a man, who had flown in from outside the country. And we had discussed safety, security. I said, Dad, if there is any show I cannot miss, it is this one.
That one.
Hey! So, and I knew, listen, I also want to have a good relationship with my son.
Mm.
I said, okay, what are the categories of cost? And I said, go for the most expensive. He went, he came back. And that morning before he came, I was on the lookout. And a young man in my neighborhood, very young boy, about 17 for 18, was coming back. Because normally I go out at about 5 a.m. then to exercise at Unilag and come back at about 6. So when I came back, I didn't go in. I was outside of my compound. And this young boy was coming. And I said, young man, where are you coming from this early? He said, oh, I was at the show. I said, which show? And he told me. I looked at him and I said, how much did you pay? He said, I paid 5,000. And I said, and I looked at his dress. It was very dirty. And I said, how come you are so dirty? He said, sir, if you needed to see the crowd, we were squeezed in. And I stood all through the night. And it was great. It was fun. That was for me. And I waited when my son came back. And we had to talk about it. And he said, listen, it was a crazy show. And he went on and on. Did I get angry? I felt a little low, but I did not show it. And I did not want the holiday mood to be lost. I waited for 2, 3 days after when the euphoria of that show was over and we both sat down to analyze. And I can tell you, it is not easy to be a parent. We want the best for our children, and our children want the best for themselves. But one thing is very certain, we are living in two different times. And for those of us who are my age, we want to relive our teenage years in our children inadvertently. So we need to begin to trust them more, process with them, and negotiate their independence. And one thing is very certain, whether we like it or not, they are going to continue to move away from us. They are going to be able to be doing things when we are not going to be there. I can tell you stories of people that I've known who have woken up in the morning at a hotel only to see their own children coming out of the same hotel in the morning. And they met. What do you do in the reception? If you met your son and his girlfriend, and you yourself, you are just coming out of the hotel, how do you explain this phenomenon? These things are happening, they are not telltales. We need to know, and let's have confidence in them, build trust. Look, let me be honest with you. It doesn't matter who is sitting with my son or my daughter in the car. I cannot conclude that because I saw my daughter in a car, that is the aristo that my daughter is going with. Or I saw my son in a car and the person driving is a lady, that is a sugar mommy. No. All I need to do is to find out what happened. I mean, if my son says he's going to Magodo, for instance, and I went to Ikeja, and for whatever reason, I decided to go towards Magodo, and we passed each other, one in a different car, the other on the opposite direction. So it's okay, you know. Sometimes we make a mountain of out of a molehill, and I know people. I think maybe one or two parents have wondered, why didn't I dwell more on the life of the boy? I want parents to challenge us or bring their challenges to us and let us have a discussion. I said the anatomy and physiology does not change irrespective of the times. Yes, the age may drop, this may happen, but it's okay. But what is the content? What exactly are the fears that we have as parents? Can we have that conversation? And that is why I believe this is a very apt event, webinar, and this is a very apt time. Let's talk about it. Young people are great, they are achieving a lot. Nigeria is making far more progress now than when I was going to primary school or secondary school. Eh? The only difference is that the population has so increased. I mean, when you are talking about over 200 million people, the land area has not increased. Let us remember. Eh? So the struggle has rather increased for opportunities to survive and to excel. So there are many things we need to be talking about, and I hope parents can bring them on. But let me conclude by saying independence for our young people will be real, and we will continue to give them space the older they get and the more responsibility. In any case, for an 18-year-old girl is given every enablement to fulfill her full potential, she can turn around the fortunes of the family in a very positive way.
Thank you very much, Dr. Esiet. What I think I've taken away from this is negotiation. between the parents and their children. We'd just like to touch a little bit because I know that we've had questions about, good hygiene for the boy and the girl. And I would like to ask Mrs. Orenuga to speak about this. When we talk about, because when our children or when the children go through puberty, they also need to be taught good hygiene. And how can parents approach this? So I would like to ask Mrs. Orenuga if she can please speak to us about this. Good hygiene for our young people. Do we have Mrs. Orenuga on? Can we, or should we start with Dr. Esiet? Dr. Esiet, are you able
Okay.
to take
All
us
right.
through the boys' experience?
Okay. For the boys, it's not as complicated as the girls. Boys graciously don't menstruate. So we only need, let's take personal hygiene. Let's make sure we take our bath at least twice every day. And we spend time to wash every area of our body with soap. If you love sponge, use your sponge and adequate water. Don't go into the bathroom as a young man or as a teenage boy. Wash your face and feet and and leave your trunk unwashed. That is not good hygiene. The second is when you want to use undies, singlets, pants, the preference is always for cotton. And don't use singlets and pants that will not allow your body feel some air. Remember that the skin has pores. They are little tiny, tiny holes. They serve for two major purposes. One, they enable us to lose body fluid, water. And that enables our body temperature to be regulated depending on where. If you move into the hot sun from a very cold environment, you will lose more body fluid, but so that your temperature can balance, body temperature can balance. And if you lose too much fluid, that is also not good. And then the air in itself will circulate around your body, especially when it comes to wearing pants or boxers. It is not fashionable or it is not the best practice when you wear tight fitting pants that bring your testicles to touch your body skin. The reason is this. The reason why the testicles are out there is because they must be at a temperature slightly lower than the body, a minimum of 2 degrees centigrade. So if what has been designed by nature or God is meant to be not to be at body temperature as is, and you take it back to squeeze it to body temperature, you are doing a lot of disservice because it can also be affecting the capacity of the testicles to produce spermatozoa that are healthy. That is one. The second is in case a ball is thrown at you, the ability of the testicle to move will be compromised. And in the process of trying to move in a tight space, it can twist and then blood supply may be compromised. And that can mean that you can accelerate or cause the testicle to die. And if the testicle dies, then you have also depleted your source of hormone, and at the same time, your capacity to procreate when you want to is reduced. Now, your armpit is a very critical area because part of puberty is that you will be sweating more and more and more and more and more. Then we need, and that's why we need to make sure we, the use of deodorant is nice, and I'm not against it. But that does not remove that from auxiliary hygiene. Let us wash the auxiliary very well with soap and water and make sure that we keep all of that fresh. Oral, our dental hygiene is very, 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 very important. As often as you eat, brush. People may say, yes, you should do it in the morning and before you go to bed. Those are true. But when you don't talk and you eat and you keep your mouth closed, what happens is that the remnants of the food can stick in between your dentition and they all become very growth areas for bacteria. And what then happens is that each time you open your mouth to talk, you notice that people tend to step back. So we really need to be wary about that. Even our clothes. I always say to people, when young people are going through puberty, they need like a set of uniform per day. Is not you can't use all those things I've listed, your shirt, your singlet, your boxer or pants, and your shorts or trousers for 2 days. No, it doesn't work that way because you have the sweat has accumulated on these clothing today. So if you just go ahead and use them the following day without getting them washed, then what are you doing? So it's building debt over debt. So personal hygiene must be top notch for you to enjoy puberty.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. So, Mrs. Orenuga, could you please speak about good hygiene from the perspective of a young girl?
Thank you very much, Mr. Renuga. Talking about hygiene for our girls, especially during menstruation. I agree, during puberty, you must keep your body clean. Even beyond puberty, cleanliness is next to godliness. We must keep our bodies clean. But during this time and when you're menstruating, the most important thing is having your bath at least twice a day, using a good sanitary pad, changing your pad depending on the flow of your menstruation. Some people can use one pad in 1 hour, but whether the pad is fully stained or not, it is not good to leave your pad for more than at most 3 hours. Change it regularly so that you won't get stained. Use proper cotton pants to hold it in place. And when you get stained, please change your underwear, go and wash it and dry it in the sun. Drying your underwear in the sun is very important because the sun helps you to kill some germs. Another thing I'll have to talk about is the use of tampon. Some girls, it's easy to use, but it's expensive. So because it's expensive, some girls tend to leave it for hours, 6 to 8 hours. Let me say that the use of tampon, as good as it is, as simple as it is also dangerous. If you leave it for too long, and you're not supposed to sleep over with tampon. If you leave it for too long, the blood is a medium for infection. And our vagina has its own natural bacteria. So that if you leave it for too long, the bacteria mixes with the blood and cause infection that we call toxic shock syndrome, which is very fatal. The girl can die. So if you want to use your tampon, don't leave it for more than 3 hours. Remove it. Use your pad so that even your vagina can breathe. You know, if you put in your tampon, it has covered your vagina, and there's no way for your vagina to breathe. So what we advocate is when you use your tampon 3 hours, use your pad, remove that, you can use it, but don't use the tampon overnight because it can cause toxic shock syndrome. Another thing is while having your bath, you need to pay attention to the vaginal hygiene. You need to wash your hygiene properly. But please don't use all this soap. that they say is to fight bacteria or something. Because
Perfume.
the vagina has its own odor, natural odor. You can't wish it away. It is there. Don't douche with all these chemicals that people
Yes.
advise. Advertisement is not everything you see in advertisement that is good. Simple washing with simple soap is enough. Don't put your fingers in and say you want to start washing it. No, it's not necessary. Father God has made it in such a way that the bacteria in your vagina, they are natural and they are there. So keep your vagina um, well washed. As often as you change your pad, wash your vagina, dry it before you put in another pad or tampon. Another thing I want to talk about, and Dr. Esed mentioned it, during puberty you sweat so much. You sweat, and most of the sweating is from your armpits. You have hair growing in your armpit. You need to shave your hair. That is one of the reasons that people have body odor. When you don't shave your hair in your armpit and wash your armpit very well, and then when you don't change your underwear, you can't wear one, especially when you're menstruating. You can't put on one pants for 24 hours. You need to be able to change at least once or twice during the day. And even if you're not menstruating, you wear your pants today, you're wearing it again tomorrow. No, what I teach the young ones is when you're having your bath early in the morning, the pants, some people can put on their pants at night, some may not, but that pants, please wash it. And don't soak pants. Some will say for 1 week, they are soaking that pants. I mean, it causes a lot of odor, bad odor, and your brassiere. Your bra must be very clean. You must wear good sized brassiere that can keep your body, your breast fat so that it does not sag. You must wash your bra every day. You must wash it every day. And you must have good clothing to change it every day. I think basically, and again, because they sweat a lot. Unfortunately, our children these days do a lot of weave on that they keep on for 1 month, for 2 months, for 3 months. And when they sweat, it stays there. What I advocate is that they should use spirit to clean their hair since they can't wash it every day. And they should at least try to do hair that won't last more than 2 weeks so that they can remove it, especially during this COVID. We've been told that the virus can hang in your hair, especially the artificial hair. So they advise you when you go out and you're coming in, take a bath from your head to your toe. If you have all these things on, how do you wash them? How do you wash them? I agree that times have changed. I've seen some comments that parents are saying times have changed. Times have really changed. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have some values, put some values into our children. And let me come on into this idea that the young ones want to go out, they want to go to parties. What I tell children, and my daughter is a witness. When she was growing up, mommy, I'm going to that party. And I would say, you look at the time, mommy, I will go to that party. So what I do is, please let me know where you're going, where you're coming back. If it's too late, you have your uncle in Ikoyi. If it's in Ikoyi, stay there instead of coming home around 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. But today, if you don't allow them to do it at that period, when they are adults, they will overdo it. Today, if you ask Bukola Kosi party, mommy, party care. If overdone it, the party does not interest her again. But if you don't allow them to do it at that period, they will do it behind you. Or if you calm down, then they can't do it when they are into adults to be more serious with other things in life. That is when they start doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. Have you also spoken about what to do when it comes to their armpits? Because I'll give you an example. I've met some young people, some young girls, what I would say they are allergic to using deodorant or they react to deodorant. Is there an alternative that you can speak to?
If you look at the use of deodorant, It's just recently that people had the craze of deodorant. Once you shave your armpits very well, it is the air in your armpits that when you
Mm,
sweat, the sweat stays there that causes the odor. But if you wash it, if you shave regularly and wash it every day, every time you're having your bath, concentrate on that place and wash it with soap and water. Then you won't have any odor. Another thing I forgot to say is under your breast. You must keep your breast under your breast very clean, and then you must keep it very dry. As much as you sweat, you can quickly take a shower. Some people, the the rate at which they sweat is so much that they need to take showers almost 2 times before the day runs out. So once they keep that place, and even if you look at some deodorant, we are told is not very good, predisposes to cancer of the breast. So we must
mm.
even be careful the way we use deodorant, and especially the antiperspirant. It is good to sweat. It is very good to sweat, but you must be able to handle it when so that it will not cause body odor on you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. I would just also like to discuss with Mrs. Adewoyi and Mrs. Omotade. We've spoken about children having a close relationship with their parents, communication, using the right words and all that. But what happens when you have a child who is shy or who is reserved and cannot speak to their parents? What can we speak? How can parents handle this sort of situation? I would like to start with Mrs. Adewoyi, then I'll come
Okay.
to you, Mrs. Omotade.
Thank you very much. Before I dive into that question, I'll first like to say something about what Mommy has been saying about the female children. Most of the things she's spoken about really does apply to the male child as well. The issue of hygiene, being clean, changing your boxes or your pants regularly, washing your armpits, shaving underneath. It all applies to the male child as well on hygiene. And then back to your question. It's so funny that you're addressing this to me because I really struggled with this with my own personal kids. And like we've heard time over time that parenting is a skill that also needs to be learned. There is no way your child should be shy with you. It is acceptable, I believe, with every other person out there, but not with you as the mother and as the father. And so you have to really know what works with your children. As a growing teenager, I found that I could tell my mom anything, absolutely anything. And then I realized as a budding mom, my children could not do the same with me. They would rather talk to my mom, who is their grandma, or they would talk to their dad. And you expect with girls that they will be able to say a lot with me. And I wasn't getting that. So I had a discussion with my mom and said, so how come they can talk to you and they can't talk to me? They say it's because of my stance. It's my position on a lot of things. They believe I'm very idealistic. So no matter how shy or reluctant a child is, it is also that child's perception of the parents that makes the child reluctant to open up to you, because no matter what an introvert the child is, the child should be able to open up to the mom and to the dad to say, I'm feeling this way, this is happening to my body. And so I think it's up to the parents to really calm down and find out what works with their child and how to go about it. I'm sure Mrs. Omatade would have all the right words to express this, but I'm putting on the hat of a parent, and I know that it is very, very important that you as the parent, you are the confidant of your child and not any other person, because no one would do it as well as you will do it. And thank you to all the parents and all the comments coming in. And Mr. Fanua is just putting up a comment and saying the child needs to experience love at home, and then it becomes difficult for someone out there to entice the child with fake love. So it's very, very important that we are the ones that our children confide in. Just like Mommy also said as well, it's important that we manage the parameters, but our children are confident enough to speak with us. And that is really my take on it. I think that's what's better.
Thank you, Mrs. Adeboye. I'd just like to also hear Mrs. Omotade's perspective on how parents can reach their children, or bridge that gap to children who are shy or uncomfortable to speak to them.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Adewi, for sharing your point. Well, the thing is, sometimes when teenagers are like maybe when they're like 16 is when most parents try to have a relationship. Okay. I always advise start having a relationship from whenever they're little. But however, it's not too late. But then don't expect something to change. Okay, you don't talk, and then you think, oh, you're trying to talk with your teenager in a week, and everything will the teenager will freak out and be wondering what's going on. Am I safe? What's mommy up to? What's daddy up to? Am I being set up? Okay, so even if you've not had a relationship and you want to build now, don't expect it to happen immediately. It's going to go, and then you need to be consistent. So what you can do is, like I said earlier, be aware of trends as much as possible. So when they're saying things, you can chip in. When their friends are talking, you can chip in. Okay. And then I always advise that teenagers shouldn't have TVs in their bedrooms. I know, yes, they can watch whatever on their laptops and their phones. Even that, I try to advise as much as possible, or else they will spend the whole day, in their rooms doing whatever. So what you can do is maybe when your child is watching, a favorite TV show, you can just sit in and just watch and then ask questions. And I was like, oh, okay, what happened? Then begin to learn begin to understand your child's interest. So, okay, if your boy likes to watch football, sit in. Even if you don't enjoy watching football, just sit in. When he screams, oh, it's a goal, you need to join in and then, run around and all of that. So let them just see you in a relaxed mood. Most times parents are not relaxed, and I understand the Lagos tension is a lot. You come back home and you're like, cranky and all of that. So your children need to see you in a relaxed mood. Sometimes they need to understand that you're also human. Okay, so understand their interests. You get to know a lot of the trends. So when they're talking, you can chip in. It's not going, like I said, it's not going to happen in a week, 2 weeks. Okay, and then understand the kind of friends they have as well. So you just have a common ground. With time, your child will be able to discuss things with you. And remember, don't force it. Don't when you're trying to force your child to have a relationship with you, it's like a child has mistakenly swallowed something and you're trying to like put your hand in the child's mouth to like pull it out. No. Okay, so don't force a relationship. It's going to grow on its own. But then they need to know that they trust you. They need to know that if I tell mommy stuff or daddy stuff, well, most times mommy, she won't go and start telling her friends, oh, my son did this, oh, my daughter now has a boyfriend, So they need to understand that they can trust you when they tell you things, and they are watching. They will watch and observe all of those things before they can now decide and say, okay, yes, I'm comfortable to be able to talk. And it's always better to have them now, get them now, because once they leave home, for you to be able to repair that relationship or try and build it is going to be tough.
Thank you, Mrs. Omotade. We have a comment from Michael Ayeni. He says, do not equate your child's behavior to his identity. And I really agree, because as one who speaks to young people a lot, I still was engaging a group of boys yesterday, and they talk about what my parents say, what my parents are saying to each other, what my parents are saying to their parents. So, Mr. Omatade, what you just said really like brought back that discussion that I had yesterday, because children need to understand and know that, okay, whatever I discuss with my parents, it's going to be in the strictest confidence ever. All right, Mrs. Adewuyi, I think we have a special, very
Yes,
special.
we have a very special call this evening. I have the founder online, Mrs. Adenike Adamoleku, the founder of Supreme Education Foundation School, and she would just like to offer a few words from a grandma's point of view. Hello, ma.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, ma.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Good
ma.
evening, ma.
doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
What I want to say, what I want to add as a grandparent is that grandparents definitely have a better leeway with children. It is better for you to form a very, why you kind of draw them to you and indulge them to a certain stage but know when to stop and use that relationship positively with the children. Which they trust you more, you know. They tend to report their parents to you. But you be sure that you are the same page with their parents. Give their parents some information that you tell them never disclose to the children that it's from me, but let's work on it. And the most important thing, grandparents are much on a better stand to bring children through puberty. And again, to make sure that they have the fear of the Lord, not by making them cram Bible, but by showing them practical ways that they can do things that they be on the right side of with the Lord and know that the Lord loves them. That the Bible is not a book of law; it's a book of living. And it's so easy if you can just explain to them. Parents definitely have a better leeway. Make sure you use it. Make sure you are close to them, but all the time communicate with their parents, probably behind their back. But for issues that you think are a bit explosive, find a way to introduce it where the children are there and say, "Oh, you did so. That was wonderful. You know, I just want your parents to know this. What do you think? You know, that kind of thing." Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you for joining us on this program. And that is it. Grandma's point of view. It is
always so good to hear from you.
always good. Always good. Always good. Thank you very much, Ma. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Ma.
Yes, Ma. Bye.
Okay, so I think that we are almost wrapping up, and I would just like to give our speakers about 2 minutes each to just wrap up on your different perspectives, your different discussion areas. Miss Dr. Esiet, regarding the boys, our parents are, what I understand is parents are anxious. We understand that. And in the times that we are in, we also need to encourage one another. So I would just like our speakers to please, in 2 minutes, just sum up everything to encourage our parents on how they can support their children during this very, very important period of their life. Dr. Esiet?
All right, thank you so much. Before then, let me make one or two salient points. The fact that young people are using either a roll-on or a spray does not mean that it is a deodorant, for instance. It can be an antiperspirant, which means it prevents sweating. A deodorant does not prevent sweating, but tones down if you have body odor. And I don't want all of us to live or to communicate as if the axillary hair is what creates body odor. No. Each person has a different, if you have your partner, you know how your partner smells, which means a time comes in the life of everyone where all our perfumes and the rest will have gone off. And you can know, even if you pick somebody's dress, you can say from this odor, it is likely a person's dress. That is one.
Very
Two, I also want to say that during this COVID-19, we must remember that young people feel that they are super strong, they are invisible. Nothing can go wrong to them. And schools will be reopening. We need to continue to engage with them so that they can practice appropriate behavior for COVID-19. Physical distancing, not embracing each other, wearing face shield or face covering, using hand sanitizers, washing the hands regularly, allowing their body temperatures to be taken. And should they experience any fever, stay away from school. Yes, boys will be boys. And boys are formed by two things: the socialization that we give to them and what they see in their environment. If I say to a boy or to any young person, smoking kills, that is an information, yet I take tobacco. And I take it in such a fine way that I make it look like that tobacco is a way to express my success. Now, if that young person is already fantasizing that I want to be like Uwe Messiet, it means that he wants to try and do everything Uwe Messiet has been seen to be doing. So that young person is going to imbibe that behavior. If Uwe Messiet is disrespectful to women, if I bully women, I don't respect women, I talk down on women, that young person will think that that is the way to be successful. Don't respect, don't recognize, don't appreciate, talk down. Well, I think we all have a big assignment. This is going to be an ongoing engagement. Let us raise boys and girls equally. Let us expose them to values that we all subscribe to. And let us give them reasons why we subscribe to those values. At the end of the day, the girl child, the boy child are both children. No, one is not superior to the other, and one is not better valued. What a girl can do, a boy can do. What a boy can do, a girl can do. Probably the only difference are the biological functions that have been ascribed to us. But in terms of all the other human accomplishments, they can accomplish them. Maybe some of them are not popular in our country now, but over time they will get here. Then finally, everybody needs to be clean, whether boy or girl. They need hygiene. And puberty, like I said, whether we support them or not, they will work their way through it. But at the end of the day, we want them to come out healthy, responsible, patriotic, achieving adults who will fulfill their potential, because what we are doing today is an investment into our own future. Because the teenagers of today are our professionals of tomorrow. I'd like to see Mrs. Adam Olekun, see Mrs. Adewuyi. After Mrs. Adewuyi, a young person, probably who passed through Supreme Education Foundation at some point, will come and be the CEO of Supreme Foundation Schools. And you also want to call in at that webinar that time, and hopefully Mrs. Adam Olekun will be there. So we have about 5 or 6 generations of leaders speaking. We value our young people, they are our greatest asset. We can do nothing without them, and with them, Nigeria will be greater and better. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Orenuga.
Yes, thank you. Let me start by thanking Mrs. Adenika Dalmoleta for this opportunity to talk to parents. My own take is that parents should continue to be role models for their children, whether the girls or the boys. But mainly, Dr. Esset may not agree to this. I think the women, the mothers, are the key foundation of any family. It is what you do. Yorubas will say, Owuti Abaron, Lomo somebody should help me finish it. You see that the mother is the key in any family. And so the mothers.
Why do you bring a proverb that all of you cannot have it?
Dr. Esset, please, I am on the floor. So please, let us tell the mothers. But I have another irritation. We are building our own children. And I told Ms. Orenuga about this. How do you bring this kind of thing to the public schools? Because if we mold our own children, if they are doing well, and the children you all know what I mean. May all of us have rest. May all of us have peace.
Very true.
This COVID-19 has brought out so much issue about violence. Some people are in a state of depression. Some parents are in a state of depression. You and me, we have space in our homes. We can move around. Our children can move around. Those that are living in face me, I face you. Those that their children are clamped up in one room, they are all into a state of depression. That's why you see high violence against children. Sexual, even 2-year-olds are being raped. We need to reach out. We need to help the other set of children. And so, on that note, may I end by saying, mothers and fathers, please help us to raise our children in the right. There's no right way. Parenting is come see, come sa. I tell people, it's not that because mo mo ṣe, lomo mi ṣe dada. It's the grace of God. So we still need God in everything we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am. Mrs. Omotade.
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've had a nice time on this platform. Okay, so yes, I would just like to, say again that it's important parents have relationships with their children so they can talk to them and ask them questions instead of having to go out and then being filled with all sorts. Okay, and then like I said, I've said earlier that see, don't get frustrated, don't get tired of trying to be close to your child. Okay, don't get tired, keep trying, and then this period is when there's going to be a lot of conflict, and I know a lot of them are home now, and then they're probably adding weight and then eating all the food. Please be careful the kind of comments you make. Oh, they're just eating all the food in the house, they're just adding weight. Go and do this, do that. So we should be careful as parents the comments we make this period because they're also confused. We
Very
parents are
sensitive.
confused. We don't know, what the future is going to be like in this COVID-19. So you can imagine how they would also feel. And they're going to be very moody. They're going to have high moments and low moments. As long as this doesn't prolong for maybe 2 weeks, okay, then you can be sure that it's not depression. But then if it's depression, you need to seek help for your child. Okay, and then I mentioned earlier about the emotional changes. That this period of puberty, the emotions are going to go, wild and all of that. They want to, a lot of them want to take risks. Okay, and then you can imagine they can't go out now. They're staying at home, so you can imagine the conflicts they're also having within themselves. So you need to understand as friends because right now they can't go out and spend time with their friends. So they will be frustrated and they need to channel that energy as well. So as parents, try as much as possible to use this period as an opportunity to bond with them. Okay, you can have movie nights. Yes. Okay. For instance, I have movie nights with my children. A lot of times I sleep off. I won't lie. So yes, it's but the fact that I'm sitting down with them and then having that moment is a big deal to them. Okay, so have movie nights with your children, play games. They're going to be with you for another, okay, let's say they've started approaching puberty, another 6 to 7 years. Before you know it, they're out and all of that. So this is an opportunity to bond and develop a relationship with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Omotade. Thank you very much. Um, I believe that just going back to what Mrs. Omotade just said, the idea of the Big Little Project actually started because I was on the phone with an auntie and I heard her telling her child, you're going to the fridge for the 10th time today. And that's when I just started thinking about it. So it's actually true because when that conversation happened, I then said, oh, please leave her alone, don't disturb her or anything. But that's when my co-founder and I started talking about this, and we now decided to start having like series of webinars and sessions, and that was why our first session was on body positivity and self-confidence. So that's really important for parents to realize that what we say to our children really, really matters. Thank you to all our speakers. I believe that we have about 4 or 5 minutes and we've answered all the questions. A big thank you to Dr. Esiet, Mrs. Orenuga, and Mrs. Omotade. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking time out to speak at this webinar. Thank you, Mrs. Adewoye, for the opportunity.
Well, thanks to you. A very big thank you to the Big Little Project. It's fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Oreniga, for making this possible. Mommy, we are glad to have you. You brought in your experience, you brought in God, and you brought in your profession. All three. Well, please, Dr. A said, thank you so much. It's been very enlightening. And Mr. Matade, thank you very much for making that time. So we're hoping that when we call on you again at Supreme, you will be available for us. Did I get a yes there? Can I thank you? And then, like Mommy said as well, reaching out to the public schools. We have a community school very close to us that we work with and everything. We would love to give something like this back to them, know what they have available online, and then see if we could do online virtual, or when school resumes physically, we could have a session with them. And I'll get back to you through Miss Orenuga. Thank you so much for making our time. It has been an enlightening evening. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you,
thank you to our parents too for tuning in, as always, supportive with all the wonderful comments. It's been the icing on the cake. Thank you all very much.
And thank you to our young person, Mona.
Yes, Mona.
Gave her